This whole situation with Sean Strickland is just so bizarre to me. I mean, I don't think any of us really thought he was going to win against Israel Adesanya. And I wouldn't say I was a fan of his. I mean, I kind of knew about him. I knew he was a good fighter, but I mean, most people, all they knew is he got knocked out by Alex Pereira. So he goes in there, beats Israel Adesanya. I was in an actual theater watching this. Crazy. I remember me and I'm a big Adesanya hater. I guess you could say I really dislike the guy. I'm probably up there with some of the biggest haters, honestly. And I wish I was making videos back then, actually. But yeah, I was watching all this stuff, watching him get dropped in the first round by Sean, and everything that happened was just like probably one of the biggest upsets of all time. And just to give you guys some context, I've been watching the UFC fights since way back to watching Matt Hughes as a champion, watching kind of early on the GSP. Like I used to watch that stuff all the time. Now watching today, like talk about an upset, like Israel being seen as this like unbeatable Nigerian champion, and then to see a guy who would probably be considered like a good fighter, but never, no, most people would not consider him great, to go in there and just demolish him in 5 rounds, right? Just piece him up. He didn't knock him out. He didn't submit him. He didn't TKO him, but he really did. Like that was a very clean sparring session. Like if you've ever sparred, if you went in there and you did everything you could, you threw punches and the guy blocked everything, he avoided everything, he parried everything and he kept the pace, kept you exhausted, kept you on the back foot. He was landing his jabs, he's landing his right hand, landing all these little T kicks here and there. That was a clean sparring session. But now that he's champion, I'm kind of worried because, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of his. I do like people that push out chaos because they make things fun. But can he beat Driscus? And not only can he beat Driscus, I mean, Driscus is, again, he's another guy who moves forward. He fixed his nose, so he has pretty good cardio, I would assume. He took out Robert Whitaker, which was a huge. I mean, could Strickland do that? Maybe. Maybe he could with the pace. Robert keeps his hands down. He might get pieced up. Could happen. But this whole situation, whether he wins or loses, it kind of goes to show that everyone already has his kryptonite. And this goes from a lot of people that were thinking Sean Strickland, oh, he's the guy who talks the most shit, right? And people who kind of talk like that tend to, it's usually because they can take it, right? If they can give it, they can take it. And unfortunately, within his first title defense, we've already learned on the first, press conference that he has a major kryptonite, which is his childhood. And if you guys watch the press conference, right when Driscoll starts talking about Sean's childhood, you can clearly see him kind of like twist his neck a little bit. It gets to him, and then he shifts from being this kind of clown like, jester to then going into full rage mode. So, I mean, that was real. And that's the thing with Strickland. He's a real guy. He doesn't have the ability to put on like a fake smile, like, I don't know, maybe like a Colby or some of these guys, right? They could put on a face though that even though they're angry, even though they're really hateful, even though they want to attack someone, they'll be able to keep themselves calm and under control because they can read a room essentially. But Sean isn't the type of guy to do that. If he's smiling, it's because he really is smiling. And if he's angry, it's because he's really angry. So he can't hide his feelings. And for him to get that crazy, which is again why at the press conference they had multiple security guards. They were right there because they understood that Sean was actually angry and that he actually would try something. And then big surprise, at UFC 296, Dana, as he said, he put them right next to each other. And then big surprise, the fight happens. Now I think that might have been a little bit on Driscus because you could see that Sean, he knew he was there, but he was trying to ignore him. And then you could see that after the little kind of, pretend to shoot him with a fake gun and all that, you could see Driscus was trying to talk to him. And the problem was Driscus, he probably doesn't know too many people like Sean because there are some real people out there that when they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it, no matter the consequences. maybe he's used to normal guys, like, oh, we're in a crowd, there's people around, there's families, there's people, like he would assume that like he's not going to do something, right? He might get in trouble with the law or something. So he had this idea that Sean wouldn't do something, but not knowing that Sean is one of those rare kinds of people that if he says he's going to do something, no matter the consequences, he's going to do it. But I think the main point of this video, I guess you could say, is really like, Sean is kind of trying to brand himself as a certain person, and you're starting to see that like brand start to kind of crumble. Because I understand some people will say, oh, this guy was talking about your dad, he was talking about the traumas and things you went through as a kid, therefore he deserves X, Y, and Z. But really, if you're trying to be a role model, which I'm pretty sure he said a few times on Instagram, then a role model doesn't want to be, getting into fights all over the place, right? He shouldn't be just attacking people because, well, he said something I didn't like, and now I'm trying to, outpunch this guy out in with all these kids around. And it's a really bad look. It's not something you should be showing if you're trying to all of a sudden. I don't know if you can hear that, but the dog next door is getting into their own MMA fight. But it's just not a good look for the kids. It's not a good look for the people following you, especially if you're trying to show young men like this is what you should be, right? You should get in the gym, you should be tough, you should shoot guns, you should learn how to punch people. You shouldn't live your life like Sean O'Malley. He's trying to teach people, don't be like those people, be like me. But then he's getting triggered because some guy's talking about his childhood, and then now he's throwing punches at a guy, which again, that's Sean Strickland. That's happening in an MMA venue. That nothing is going to happen because of that. But if you did that, if someone was saying something like that to you in a bar, I don't know, a grocery store, something, now they wouldn't have that info. But the point is if someone says something to you that pissed you off, and then you started punching them out, you would end up in jail because of that. There's not going to be a Dana White or anyone out there that's just gonna like look the other way, or who knows, maybe put a couple Benjamins in someone's back pocket so they look the other way. It's gonna be, you're gonna end up in cuffs, and you're not gonna have people in your comments saying, oh yeah bro, he deserved that or whatever. It's not gonna happen. It will be fine for him, but it won't be fine for you. And not to mention, if he lives his life like that, it's not going to be fine for him at some point, right? If he does that outside of a UFC kind of venue, kind of like what happened with those people that came to his door, or not people, but there was a guy outside his home with that whole video. I'm not exactly sure what was happening there, but you could see that Strickland was being very handsy with the guy. I think he even threw him down to the ground. I mean, again, he got really, really lucky because people are being put in jail and their lives are getting destroyed over very basic stuff, let alone there being video of you assaulting somebody. So whether who's right or wrong, in 2023, I mean, it's not a good look. It's better to, in a situation like that, call the police and don't get involved, because the minute you get involved and there's evidence of it, then who knows? You never know. You think it's going to go your way because, well, this guy was doing that and I was doing this, but you never know how the law is going to work. So, I mean, point of this video is, will he be able to even beat Driscus, right? Because if he gets that emotional in the ring and next thing you know, he starts fighting a bad fight plan, and then Driscus again has power, he might even be the better wrestler. What if Sean, gasses out due to all that emotional rage, So he may lose right there. But I mean, this idea is that like the Sean Strickland, this like invincible guy who makes fun of everyone, he's not invincible. He has a kryptonite, and everyone is going to use it. Whether he wins this next fight or he loses, everyone is going to use it if they decide to get that advantage over him. And so we'll see what happens. But in some ways, this could be the beginning of the end for Sean Strickland.